This is James Murray, and in 1879, James Murray was enlisted by Oxford University to begin developing the greatest dictionary of the English language that had ever been created, a compendium of the definitions and the histories of every word within the English language. There was a previous team working on this, but they were not making the desired level of progress that Oxford University required, so they brought James Murray in to work on it. He had a team of lexicographers that worked in his home, in the back of his home pictured here. And this team, they debated vigorously about which words were worthy of inclusion within the dictionary. And it actually took them 10 years to progress from the word a to the word ant. In order to get the help that they needed to assemble this dictionary, they appealed to the general public. They wanted clippings from books, from newspapers, from journal articles, all throughout history, so that they could assemble this compendium of the uses of these words over time. And the British Post Office actually installed a mailbox directly outside of James Murray's house where the team worked. And this may potentially be the only time in history that the British Post Office took this measure to help them deal with the volume of correspondence that his team received. So if you're wondering, yes, this is a grandiose metaphor about AI search engines. What I'm hoping to do with my talk with you today is to show you how you can get your brand and your content inside of this post box and ultimately into this groundbreaking new technology that we're dealing with, not dictionaries, but this revolutionary new technology of AI search engines. So I'll be taking you on this journey today. My name's Frank Duignan. I will say I'm not a computer scientist. I'll be honest about that up front. And my greatest achievement in that regard would probably be the D that I received in Year 10 IT. However, I've been working with the Prosperity Media team for the past 3 years, working on a wide range of SEO strategies. And we're also developing what I think is really one of the best generative engine optimization services that you can find within the region. So I'm hoping to share with you today basically as much as I can of what we've learned over time about generative engine optimization, and particularly how you can apply these learnings to your content strategy. So before I go on, can I get a quick show of hands in the room? Who in the room believes that generative engine optimization is something that's truly unique to search engine optimization and should be considered a unique service in this way? A few. So I assume that the rest of you are more in the camp of it's essentially a repackaged version of SEO, doesn't need to be considered too much of a separate service. Okay, well, my position on this great SEO civil war is that I simply do not care. So for the purposes of this presentation, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about to you today, they won't be entirely revolutionary to you. If you've been working in SEO for a while, you'll probably be quite familiar with these concepts. However, I do believe there is a lot of value in understanding these concepts within the context of large language models and AI search engines. So that's the value that I'm going to hope to provide to you today. So what I'm going to do specifically is look at these 3 different technical functions of large language models and explain how you can create a content strategy that will allow you to leverage these technical functions and earn greater AI visibility for your brand or for your clients. These being content chunking, natural language processing, and query fanout. So starting off with content chunking, this is the process by which large language models break text down into smaller and more digestible sections of content. So to cut to the chase, you are no longer competing against entire web pages in quite the same way that you used to be. In the world of 10 blue link SEO, you had your optimized web page, it was going up against other optimized web pages, and the totality of your web page needed to be optimized to achieve this greater level, to achieve the greatest level of visibility. It's not quite the same anymore. Large language models prefer to look in terms of chunks rather than entire web pages. They're also looking at books and PDFs, so you can see why it's a lot easier for them to primarily process smaller chunks of text rather than entire web pages. So you need to be creating content chunks that are very succinct and very comprehensive to achieve the greatest level of AI visibility. So a standard chunk is 512 tokens, or about 400 words. This is sort of the standard base unit of content chunking that these models were essentially trained on. So your chunks might be a bit larger than 400 words, they might be a bit shorter than 400 words, but that's the general base level that you can think about content chunks as being. You can actually paste your content into this tool on the OpenAI website, the OpenAI tokenizer, and you can actually see how your content is going to be tokenized by the OpenAI large language model. So that gives you a sense. You can see it kind of roughly corresponds to one word to a token, but not in all cases, and sometimes a word may be broken up into multiple tokens. So what this means is your chunks need to be really self-contained and comprehensive. This is an example from a website that I operate. This is the ChatGPT output for the most popular lawn bowl brands. You can see this chunk that I've written using dot points to create a high level of information density, really just serving as much information as I can to the system in the shortest number of words. And that has allowed me to earn this visibility within the large language model. And if you can get this right, there's a lot of rewards for your brand, because up to 15% of the text that is produced by large language models is made up of snippets of about 50 characters or less that can be found verbatim online. So there's a lot of potential for you to control the narrative about your brand and about your industry if you can pull off content chunking effectively. Now, with all that being said, the entirety of the web page that sits around a content chunk is not completely irrelevant in this conversation. There's also this concept of parent document retrieval. What parent document retrieval means is that when a large language model comes across a chunk that it wants to include within an output, will actually look at the entirety of the web page or other elements of the web page to ensure that the chunk is being placed into an appropriate context. So it's looking at things like your headings, as well as the key takeaway sections that you might have right at the top of your web page. Primarily, it's doing this to ensure that chunks aren't being taken out of context and they're being served in appropriate contexts for users. So it's important to have really logical, nested heading structures that are going to make a lot of sense for a machine that's trying to crawl them. And key takeaway sections, these are something that's really valuable. A lot of people have had a lot of success with key takeaway sections because you're really front-loading your content with your key insights and ensuring that all of your chunks are being shown in a correct context. Here's an example of an output from AI mode for the major differences in road rules, Australia and New Zealand. This is a topic that at Prosperity Media, we took two different approaches tackling this topic for two clients that we have. And you can see some of the visibility that we earned. You can see particular content chunks that were cited from these two different pages. But you can also see at the bottom there that AI mode actually looked at the entirety of the web page and has recommended them for essentially further reading for the users, showing that the entirety of the web page is being taken into consideration and ultimately being recommended as a high-level source for this particular topic. So that's how you can see content chunking and parent document retrieval in action at the same time. The large language models are using headings as contextual anchors. This is an example of a web page on the Prosperity Media website. We have this information about how much does SEO cost, talking about monthly retainers. Just a nice succinct chunk of text sitting below a heading in a very logical manner. AI mode has come across this and has decided to feature it because of the quality of the information in the chunk and also the fact that it's been placed in an appropriate context with the heading. So your headings do have a really, really important part to play in how your chunks are going to be interpreted by a large language model. So what this means, and this is good news for those of us who might be dealing with some more limited resourcing, your content strategy can focus more so on chunks themselves. If you have particular passages like customer questions or query fan-out queries that you want to be optimizing for on your website, you don't necessarily need to create an entire web page for each and every one of them. You can actually target these terms with smaller chunks of text and place them around your website in appropriate locations. This is also going to allow you to easily key in on specific user intents. So when users are using large language models, they're typing in longer tail queries, and also these models have a really high level of knowledge about the people using them already. So people might be more willing to ask about what is the best SEO agency for startups, or even longer tail queries than that. Or the model might just know that the person they're talking to is a plumber. So when they ask about the best SEO agency, they want to know who's the best SEO agency for a plumbing business. So you can have content on your website. Again, you don't need an entire web page for each of these terms necessarily. You may be able to target them simply with content chunks on your website. So some AI-friendly key takeaways when it comes to content chunking. When retrieving text, large language models prefer to look at chunks of around 400 words. Page-level context remains significant thanks to parent document retrieval. And chunks should be self-contained, sit within an appropriate context, and also tackle opportunities for large language model personalization. Next, we have natural language processing. This is the system by which large language models can comprehend and interpret human language. So how is it that I can go to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize the primary themes of War and Peace in the style of a stand-up comedy routine? This is just a computer system that I'm dealing with. It has no intrinsic ability to understand human language, and this is quite a complex request that I've given it. It has to know what War and Peace is, know who Jerry Seinfeld is, and replicate his comedic style. So the reason that it can pull this off is with natural language processing. I'll now give you a very rapid-fire, oversimplified run-through of how natural language processing works, some of the key ideas that sit within natural language processing. So we've already talked about tokenization, where text is broken down into individual words. The next stage is pre-processing. This means that the text is cleaned up for interpretation, and filler words within a sentence can be removed if they aren't intrinsically necessary to understanding the meaning of the sentence. Through feature extraction, the raw text, individual words are converted into numerical values because this is a computer system, and at the end of the day, it's relying on numbers to understand the meanings of words. And what really makes this whole process possible for a large language model is semantic spacing. This is how these systems understand similar words and synonyms by applying similar numerical values to similar words. And this allows it to kind of map out a deeper understanding of human language by understanding how words relate to each other. With named entity recognition, it can understand people and places and events within a sentence. So when I ask it about War and Peace, it knows I'm talking about a book by Leo Tolstoy and not just the concepts of war and peace. And then with dependency parsing, it fully analyzes the grammar to understand and actually construct sentences in response to the inputs and the information retrieval that it's done. So how can you sort of get in on this process? Now you have some understanding of how natural language processing works. Here's how you can start to take advantage of it for your content strategies. So writing content within the style of semantic triples, this is something that's become quite popular. A lot of people have had success with this. What semantic triples means is that you're constructing your sentences essentially in the most simplistic possible way, in the form of subject, predicate, and object. So saying Apex headphones are waterproof. This is the style of writing that's easiest for a large language model to understand what you're actually trying to say, as opposed to saying experience the immersive waterproofness of Apex headphones. There's still definitely room for that type of marketing copy. However, if you can find tactical ways to use semantic triples within your content strategy, that's a really effective way that they're going to be able to understand what it is that you're trying to say. Some more examples of what you can do when it comes to optimizing your content writing strategies for geo. Instead of talking about having a high quality SEO agency, you might talk about having an Apex Search Award winning agency, because the Apex Search Awards is a separate entity that a large language model is able to understand, and that is going to lend a lot more authority to your statement that you're a high quality SEO agency, because you actually linked it to something outside of yourself or a claim that you've made generically. So for example, if you ask AI mode about the best car rental companies in New Zealand, its second favorite source to cite is an awards page from Hertz that was published 9 years ago. So if you can go out there and win some awards for your brand, the large language models absolutely eat it up. Instead of talking about having long-lasting battery life, you can talk about having 18 hours of battery life, because numbers are the natural language that these systems actually most easily understand. So anything you can do to ground your writing within the world of numbers is really, really effective. And instead of talking about being preferred to competitors, talk about how 85% of customers prefer you to competitors. So according to a 2024 study from Princeton University, the statistics addition in content can improve GEO performance by 33.9%. So go out there and generate some favorable statistics about your business and start broadcasting them, because large language models really lend a lot of credence to them. So that's natural language processing, but it's definitely not the only thing that's necessary for these tools to actually understand human language and human concepts. For a more complex idea like your brand, a large language model is going to rely on a knowledge graph. And this is kind of a simplistic representation of what a knowledge graph might look like for this brand Apex Tech. So in the center of this knowledge graph, we have the brand Apex Tech. And close, within that central node of Apex Tech, this brand produces products like the Apex phone, the Apex watch. The Apex phone has features of a 20-hour battery life, and the Apex watch has the feature of water resistance. And a large language model can also understand that this brand is servicing personas like swimmers and personas like power users. So you're going to have content on your website that's kind of targeted to all of these things, right? You're going to have pages for your products, pages explaining your features, and talking about how you service different personas. That makes it really, really easy for these knowledge graphs to be constructed about your business. But if you want to take your geo strategy to the next level, you can draw these additional lines, make it really, really easy for this system to understand how all these different ideas relate together. So for example, if the Apex phone is compatible with the Apex watch, you want to make this as clear as you can within content on your website so that the system can understand this compatibility. And then when I go to ChatGPT and ask what's the best phone that's compatible with a smartwatch, it has this information to hand about your brand. And similarly, if you can have content pages or chunks talking about how the feature of water resistance is valuable to the persona of a swimmer, the feature of 20-hour battery life is valuable to the persona of a power user. Again, these lines are really easily drawn within the system, and it's going to be more willing to serve up your brand to people using these models. So one way you can go about this is conducting audits of your website to ensure that you're feeding large language models the right information about your brand. With things like AI info pages, comparison pages, homepage FAQs, you really need to make sure that what exists on your website, as well as off your website as well, you're feeding the highest quality information that you can to a brand. So really take a look at what you're doing on your website and what you need to do to make it really, really easy for these models to understand your brand better. AI-friendly key takeaways for natural language processing. To interpret human language, large language models must apply numerical values to words. Large language models also draw on knowledge graphs to support natural language processing, and using techniques like semantic triples and statistics addition allow you to take advantage of natural language processing for GEO. So the final component that I'm going to talk to you about is query fanout. This is where large language models conduct multiple simultaneous searches to provide comprehensive responses to queries. So we know that large language models offer seriously detailed responses. If you ask a tool like Gemini, what's the best running shoe, it's going to give you a really detailed breakdown of the top overall picks, the best trail running shoes, the best shoes in different categories. It's going to give you supporting information about how to choose your category as well. The reason that they're able to do this is through query fanout. Now here's a rough approximation of how query fanout might look for a term like the best running shoes. So it's the system is not just going to be running searches looking at the best running shoes. It's going to have sub-queries that sit within the best running shoes. It's going to allow it to serve the highest quality information to its users. So it's going to look at the best running shoes for speed, the best daily trainers, the best trail running shoes, and also sub-queries within each of those queries. It's going to draw on a really wide array of information from around the internet, and that allows it to provide super detailed responses to users. So this really highlights the importance of working on creating an online consensus. And offsite GEO is really a topic for a whole other talk. Don't have time to get into too much detail about that here, but you do definitely need to start thinking about how your brand is represented around the internet. So if you go on a tool like Perplexity, it's actually going to show you exactly what sources it's using to generate its responses. So if you ask it about the best electrician in Sydney, it's looking at these different sites like High Pages. It's going to look at brand pages. It's looking at Reddit. It's looking at product review. This goes way beyond what's on your website. So start thinking about what you need to do, what Reddit communities you can start interacting with, what kind of review strategies you have in place to get people speaking about your brand in a positive way all over the internet. Now, query fanout is also really vital for helping large language models tackle personalization. In addition to these longer tail queries that we're throwing into these AI models, these models also know sometimes a disturbing amount about us already. Whether it's from chat memories, from Google Workspace integrations with Gemini, or if you're using the Meta AI system, it's looking at your Facebook and your Instagram data. If you're using Grok, it's looking at your X data. So rather than just throwing in queries into the internet based purely on the initial prompt that was provided to them, it's going to add information based on what it knows about you as a user. And this allows it to provide really tailored information to users of these services. So it's really important that you deepen your understanding of your customers so that you can meet large language models where they're at and serve up information that's going to be highly appropriate for the level of detail that it wants to provide to customers. So this is an example of something we use at Prosperity Media called an empathy map to really deepen our understanding of customers that we're writing for, asking questions like what do they look at, what do they think and feel, what do they say and do, who do they listen to. It's really important that you have a deeper understanding of your customers than ever before because that's exactly what large language models have. And if you want to earn visibility within large language models, you need to serve up this information to them with this level of depth and insight about your customers. You can also optimize your strategy for fan-out queries. So like the example I showed earlier about chunk creation strategies. With a tool like Haul, you can actually look at query fan-out queries and just add these into your content strategy. Really optimize for these queries specifically, and that's going to really heighten your chances of being surfaced when this query fan-out process is run by an AI model. So some final AI-friendly key takeaways around query fan-out. Large language models run many sub-searches to deliver more detailed responses and to draw on an online consensus. This system also helps large language models to personalize outputs for users. Your content strategy must reflect these fan-out prompts rather than just the initial prompts that users are putting into the systems. So if you put all of this together, these are some of the results that we've achieved at Prosperity Media, kind of bringing together all of these ideas like query fan-out optimizations, writing in ways that are highly optimized for GEO, and we achieved 341.47% ROI on this particular campaign. So if you are interested in starting a GEO content strategy, particularly from scratch, I have created this 15-step checklist, which you can download at the QR code. And yeah, these are the 15 steps that I would be taking if I was just starting from scratch, trying to get a GEO content strategy off the ground today. Or if you miss it, hit me up on LinkedIn. So I hope I've provided some insight to you today to let you know how you can get your content into the post box and into the ground floor of this groundbreaking new technology that we're all dealing with, and really plant a flag for your brand and for your content that's going to last for years and years and years to come. You can also download my slides at this link or get in touch with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, and applause.